What's up, my Timmys, Tammys, and non-Timmys? Shannon from the Trinisphere here, coming at you with a deck tech for Brudiclad Telcore Engineer. I'm calling this one Brudiclad's Clones. You can check out this deck in action on our YouTube channel, the Trinisphere. You can also check out the other deck techs from my co-hosts. Let's see, Johnny will be playing Adriana, Captain of the Guard. Spike will be playing Yahenni, Untitled Partisan. And we'll have a guest who's playing a random brew of their own. So be sure to check those out. If you want to check out our channel, you can see the other people's deck techs and then the upcoming gameplay. So be sure to like and subscribe if you want to get more deck techs and be notified when that gameplay comes out. Alright, so let's take a look at the list. So right off the bat, we got Brudiclad, our commander. Telcore Engineer. He's a 6-mana 4/4. He gives all of our creature tokens haste. Pretty sweet, right? And at the beginning of combat in our turn, he gives us a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature. Then we may choose a token we control, and then all of our tokens become copies of that token, which is insane. Two big things to note here. Number one, it does not stay until end of turn. So once you've converted all those tokens into whatever the hell you want, they stay that way for the rest of the game, or until you want to do this again next combat. Second thing to note, it does not say creature tokens. So if you have a bunch of treasures, clues, what the heck ever, Ethereum cells, you can turn those things into creatures. You can also turn your mirror into treasures if you want. So these are some pretty unique avenues that we can play around with. Off the bat, there's kind of two ways to build Brudiclad in my opinion. One, there's the wide token approach, where you create as many tokens of all the varieties you can, and then you flop down something, and then you convert all of those into copies of that and try and kill someone in one big blow. But the big problem I've noticed with this strategy is that it's susceptible to interaction. People can see you building up. They're keeping tabs on you. It's obvious how big you're getting, and you're having to run a bunch of suboptimal cards, trying to generate a bunch of tokens of various types, trying to build up a lethal board state. Your opponent's going to interact with you, disrupt you. They see it coming. They can play around that. The second strategy is instead, why don't we just play good, solid, interactive creatures, and instead we just make clones of those creatures. So it's not about having a bunch of really small creatures that convert into a big, one big creature. It's about consistently dropping value-generating creatures, cloning those, making tokens of those, and then later on converting the various ones into the most optimal one for attacking at the time. So let's take a look at what we got. I broke this list down into the classic ramp, draw, removal categories, but additionally upon that we have things we want to clone, my clone me section. We got the things that will do the cloning, the clone makers, and then we got our leftover token generators, which we can then use to turn a small group of tokens into a value attack creature. For the things we want to clone, we got Ancient Stone Idol. This is one of the cards from the most recent commander set. He's a 10 mana flash 12/12 with trample, but he costs 1 less for each attacking creature. Now, notable, it does not say they have to be attacking you. So you can cast this when somebody's attacking somebody else. You can cast this when you're attacking someone. It reduces its cost, and we can drop this in here. The reason this guy made the cut is that when he dies, he makes a 6/12 trampler construct. So pretty sweet. I love these cards that when they board wipe us, it slows us down, but we're still there. We're still in this game. We don't have to rebuild nearly as fast as everyone else. People have to build around this. They're going to play around this a little bit. Like, do we board wipe this 12/12, give him a 6/12, which he's then going to turn all of his treasures into? It's going to be hard for them to play around, which is why I like this guy. We got Combat Celebrant, who, if you make a token of this guy, and then you play Brudiclad, and you make your 2/1 mirror. You go to combat, make your 2/1 mirror. You attack and you exert this guy, getting a new combat step. After you turn your mirror into a copy of him, you've just basically given yourself infinite attack steps. So when you give yourself a new attack step, Brudiclad will create a new 2/1 mirror, which will then become a copy of Combat Celebrant. So he starts generating Combat Celebrants until the end of time. So this is kind of an infinite combo with Brudiclad. Once you've made a token copy of this guy, there's also in here there's a Kiki-Jiki, which goes infinite with Combat Celebrant, and then there is Helm of the Host, which goes infinite with him as well. You got Dream Eater, a new card from Guilds of Ravnica. This is a 6-mana 4/3 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, it bounces a non-land permanent, and then it also surveils 4. So notable things here, this is quality interaction. This is a quality attacker. It's an ETB trigger. This is exactly what kind of package we're looking for. We want to be able to clone this with a spell to get a second ETB trigger, and then we want to be able to attack effectively once we've converted all of our creatures into 4/3 flyers. So this is a pretty good example of what we're looking for. It also has Surveil 4, which is really good for us because we have some graveyard recursion interaction in this deck as well. All right, we got Duplicant. That just exiles things. Perfect to clone. It's not so great to turn our 2/1 mirrors into Duplicants because we're not going to get that trigger a second time. But depending on what we exile with Duplicant, Duplicant becomes the size of the thing we exile. So if we exile something nice and big, our 2/1 mirrors start turning into whatever the heck that thing was. So Flame Tongue Kabu, the OG Ravenous Chupacabra, the red Chup. This one does 4 damage to a creature enters the battlefield. So I like this one as a little bit of early game interaction, able to pop somebody's commander. But also notable, we can clone this thing to do another 4 damage, keep commanders off the battlefield and that kind of thing. But also notable, it's a 4/2. So when we go to time to rumble, time to go in the red zone, we can convert all of our guys into 4/2s if we're working with clone versions of this guy. Got Hellkite Tyrant. When he deals damage to people, he just takes all their artifacts. LOL. This is the kind of like power play that I like. That swings the board drastically in your favor and irrevocably. They don't get the artifacts back, so they're gonna have to Vanablast themselves effectively. And also, there is that clause in there that if you have 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. Not really the focus of this deck, but it's nice to have. But more importantly, this allows us to like oppressively beat people down and dynamically shift the board in our favor and detriment them in such a way that they're on the back foot trying to scramble to deal with our waves of clone Hellkite Tyrants, in addition to the fact that we just rant ourselves significantly. All right, we got Inferno Titan. He's also another primo example of what we want here. He's great to clone, because then you get another one that has ETB trigger dealing 3 damage. He's great to make copies of and attack with. Our 2/1 mirror becoming Inferno Titans. We trigger him again when we attack. So this guy is perfect for kind of controlling the board when it comes to smaller creatures, dealing damage to the face, turning our mirror army into a game-winning swing. Got Meteor Golem, the Spine of Ishah, and a body. 3/3 when he comes in the battlefield, we destroy any target non-land permanent opponent controls. So great to clone again. We get another Spine of Ishah trigger effectively, and then he's a 3/3 body. So I like to think this is like a beast within, where we get the token and we benefit. Got Steel Hellkite. This one's pretty good just because we can swing at multiple people, and then once we got clones, we can swing at different people, and then we can figure out which one we want to blow out with his X-activated ability. Wormcoil Engine is one of the best creatures in this deck, of course, kind of like the Ancient Stone Idol. When it dies, it leaves behind 2 3/3 tokens, so that we can then convert our guys into Lifelinkers or Death Touchers. Hard for people to board wipe us with Wormcoil Engine out. And we got Zealous Conscripts in here, which goes infinite with Kiki Jiki and that kind of thing. So kind of just a holdover. We can clone this thing too to steal other people's stuff occasionally. And then a 3/3 haster is not too bad. 3/3 being a pretty good body for when we want to create or convert our mirror into this kind of guy. So let's move on to the cards that we're going to use to create clones. We've got Arcane Artisan. This is a 3-mana 0/3. This is from Battle Bond. It's the new card. 3-mana 0/3. Has a 3 mana and tap activated ability. Target player draws a card, then exiles a card from their hand. And if that card is a creature card, then they create a token that's a copy of that creature. So this is like 3 mana tap, draw, and then like cast one of the creatures at our hand. Make a token copy of it. It does have the downside that says when Arcane Artisan leaves the battlefield, exile all tokens that were created at the beginning of the next step. But it is notable to mention that the rules are such that if we create clones or copies of the thing she created, our copies are not exiled when she goes away. Only in the case of like doubling season, where they create replacement effects, where it makes her generate 2 tokens or 3 tokens or 4 tokens from her own triggered ability. Only those creatures would be exiled at the end of turn. The rest of the creatures, the ones that we use, when we convert our mirror into whatever she made, or we clone whatever she made, those will not be exiled when she leaves the battlefield. We got Blade of Selves, really great on, Inferno Titan, Dream Eater, all those cards. We just want to get a bunch of end of the battlefield triggers when we swing with this thing. Cackling Counterpart is a perfect example of what we want to run in this deck. 3 mana, instant speed, create a token that's a copy of our creature. That's awesome. So we can use this to save Brudiclad. If he's getting targeted with a removal, we can just make a clone of him, LOL. And then let the original one get legend ruled or blown up, whatever. It also has flashback, so we can use this later in the game a second time. But this is exactly what we're looking for, is a good way to generate a new enter the battlefield trigger off of one of our good quality creatures, and then use that clone to create an army later on. Got Fairy Artisan, a way to pivot and use our opponent's creatures against them. I've seen a lot of people struggle against this card. If you guys don't know about this one, it's a 4 mana 2/2 flyer. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under opponent's control, we get a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's an artifact, and then we exile all the other ones we have. So you can only have one. We can only have 1 token at a time. It's the most recent creature cast by our opponents, but I've seen opponents struggle hard against this card. I played it, and then they had a slow roll. They didn't want to give me a quality creature, so they sat there struggling, trying to figure out how to play around this while I was building up board state just from this 4-mana 2/2 flyer. I also then cloned this creature to make multiple Fairy Artisans, which was just insane. All right, we got Faded Infatuation, another 3-mana instant, make a clone of a creature we control. It's on our turn, we scry 2. So this is another good example of a way to instantly create a copy, maybe at their end step, and then position ourselves to strike pretty hard next turn. Fell into the third path, a 3-mana tap activated ability. We put a token on the battlefield as a copy of a target creature in our graveyard, except it's an artifact, and then we sack that creature at the end of turn. So there's another way to reuse creatures that they finally dealt with. Once they finally get over Fairy Artisan, we just plop down Feldon and just like, oh, I'm going to make another Fairy Artisan. This one's coming in as a token from my graveyard. This guy's awesome. We got God Pharaoh's Gift, kind of the same strategy. At the beginning of combat in our turn, we exile a creature from our graveyard, make a 4/4 copy of it. So we can upgrade smaller creatures into bigger creatures. This is a 7-mana investment up front, do nothing, but if it stays around, it starts to generate extra value off of creatures that we've lost this game. Those creatures also stay around. They don't get exiled or anything like some of these other cards. Helm of the Host needs no introduction. This thing goes infinite with your Combat Celebrant. And it's also kind of insane with Zell's Construct. Just a bunch of cards. Like, this just generates a bunch of tokens for us. You can put it on Brudiclad to make more Brudiclads if you're just, a greedy bastard. But this one is a perfect fit-in for this deck. You got Kiki Jiki, Mirror Breaker, which we mentioned. It goes infinite with Combat Celebrant, it goes infinite with Zell's Constructs. But even when we're not going infinite, this card is insanely good. It just makes copies of creatures, more any battlefield triggers. And it's hard to play around because it has haste. Because 5-mana creature has haste. They can't deal with that usually. They're going to be tapped out in that kind of time. So Kiki Jiki, even when he's not going infinite, is such a good card in this deck. We got Mimic Vat, another way to position enemies' creatures as clones for us, or tokens that we can use. It exiles a creature whenever it dies. Non-token creature. When it dies, we can exile it, imprint it underneath Mimic Vat, and then for 3 mana, we start making clone copies of them that died at end of turn. So this one's a really good one to use, even our own stuff. We've got Quasi Duplicate, which is out of the new set, the new Guilds of Ravnica. It's similar to Cackling Counterparts, but it's a sorcery speed, so that's one notable downside. But the flashback is just 3 mana and a 3-mana jumpstart, right? So that's a huge upside over Cackling Counterparts. You may lose a card as opposed to the flashback from Cackling Counterparts, but 3 mana is so much more affordable and easier to use throughout the game. And you just pitch a land to it, right? So like once you've hit the certain land count, you don't need them anymore. Rite of Replication is the most insane card in this deck, making up to 5 copies of anything. So really good with Mirror Battlesphere. Let's go to Healy's Heart Histories. 6 mana makes a copy of a creature and then makes a copy of an artifact. So this one's pretty good. Double clone on a 6-mana spell. We got Supplant Form, which bounces a creature and then makes a copy of that creature. So we can use this at the end of the enemy's turn, like bounce or Blightsteel, and then on our turn all of our creatures into Blightsteels and swing. So this is like instant speed, kind of like cloner, but it can be used against opponents' creatures. It can be used to save Brudiclad. It's pretty versatile for a 6-mana instant. All right, for Twin Flame, this one is like a 2-mana clone at sorcery speed, but it creates a hasting copy of the creature that gets exiled at the beginning of the next end step. So this is kind of like a one-shot trick where we can get like a good ETB trigger and attack out of one creature if we need to. But more, one of the other like weird synergies we put in here is that we've got Dual Caster Mage as well. So if you dual cast a Twin Flame, Dual Cast will make a copy of Twin Flame. You can use that Twin Flame to make a copy of Dual Caster, and then repeat this process until you have a zillion Dual Caster Mages with haste that die at end of turn, and then just kill everyone. It also has Strive, so we can pay 3 extra mana to, kind of make a second Twin Flame, choosing a second target. So it's a little bit more versatile. It has a combo, but it may be a little bit weaker than the ones that make a consistent body that hangs out. So let's go take a look at what we have left over from the token-centric build. These are the things that are left over. You notice it's kind of like if you were looking at a token-centric build, the token generators would be much larger category and it'd be full of garbagey cards, in my opinion, as opposed to our clone section, which is much bigger in this version. So in our token section, we have Curse of Opulence, a pretty good politicking card. It warps threat assessment and allows you, some negotiation effectively. Try and draw aggro away from yourself by giving people incentive to attack somebody. Time will tell whether or not people are going to like lowly evaluate the fact that you're getting what can later become a Mirror Battlesphere every time they attack somebody. Speaking of Mirror Battlesphere, I said it's one of the most amazing cards in this. It's probably one of the most amazing cards in this deck. If you write a replication kicked on a Mirror Battlesphere, you get 5 mirror Battlespheres, which makes 20 Mirror. And then you go to combat and you turn those 20 Mirror into Mirror Battlespheres. It's insane. All right, we got Nesting Dragon. People are going to be like, what the hell, Nesting Dragon? So this is a 5-mana 5/4 flying. It has a landfall trigger to make an 0/2 egg. And when that egg dies, it makes a 2/2 flying dragon with fire breathing. People were like, this card is bad. I remember that from that terrible, quote, lands matter deck, end quote. But what I like about this guy is that I'm looking through the ways to generate tokens and I'm tired of seeing just crappy enchantments or artifacts that don't do anything. I like to have something that creates tokens on a 5/4 flying body. That's what I'm interested in. So this thing is a passive token generator on a 5/4 flying body. It also has a little bit of a kind of like strange plays that you can have with the tokens that it makes. The 0/2 by no means is a good token, but if you are in a position where you can't attack, you can go to combat and convert all of your artifact creatures into an 0/2 egg, which is kind of a defensive posture. So now when they board wipe you to blow out your board, all those eggs die and generate 2/2 flying dragons. So you can kind of put yourself into a position where it's like awful to board wipe you with this guy. And then on your next turn, of course, you can convert them back into 2/1s when you go to combat or something better. So also, this is hilarious if you clone Nesting Dragon itself, and then you're landfalling, making like waves and waves of eggs and stuff like that. So I like this guy. We got Reform, hilarious card in this deck. This card is a terrible 4-mana 0/1, Jesus. But what happens is when it dies, it makes it 3/3, and when that 3/3 dies, it makes it 6/6, and when that 6/6 dies, it makes it 9/9. So if you get this guy anywhere in his little ecosystem, manage to start cloning those tokens, you're getting tokens once again. You know, you can see there's a theme throughout my deck. I don't like getting board wiped when I'm aggro. I love it when they board wipe me and I just get another army immediately. So this is another way to do that. This guy can be skull clamped also, just to kickstart it, you know. And then, but this thing's gonna have to eat an exile spell, which is hilarious. They're gonna have to like path this thing, otherwise it's gonna get so out of hand. You got Spell Swindle, which is kind of a Brudiclad staple. Counter a big spell, then get that many treasure equal to the CMC. This is a good way to like, you know, cash or put in your back pocket like 7 treasures, and then position yourself to turn all those things into Mirror Battlespheres at some point in time. You got Tempt with Vengeance, awesome X spell, giving you X/1/1 hasting elementals, and then it's got Tempting Offer, so people have the option to also make their wave, make an equivalent wave, but then it just doubles them out. And you have no one's ever going to do that. Only idiots would ever take out the Tempting Offer unless they had some kind of trigger like a Perforos or something, which you probably shouldn't play this spell into a Perforos, but they know that your wave of 1/1s aren't going to be 1/1s for very long, so they're going to become much, much bigger. You got Talani Summoner. This card, it's questionably good. I'm still on the fence on this one. So when it attacks, it effectively, you can cast Tempt with Vengeance. Except those tokens get exiled at the end of turn. But it has City's Blessing, or it has Ascend. And you know, if this thing is pumping out a wave of 1/1s, chances are you immediately get the City's Blessing. And if you have the City's Blessing, they no longer exile at the end of turn. So it just becomes attack, cast Tempt with Vengeance, effectively. But there's a bit of sequencing issues here. Like when you attack with Brudiclad and you make trigger, you go to combat first, triggering Brudiclad, making the token, converting all your tokens to something else. Then when you swing, it triggers Talani Summoner. So she's almost like a step behind Brudiclad, which makes her questionably bad. She's also a 2-mana 1/1, so she's going to instantly get chump blocked and killed. But if you can just activate her one time and make 6 bodies or 5 bodies, and get City's Blessing, and those bodies will just hang on until next turn. So. And if you can clone her, then sure, they can block the Talani Summoners. You convert all of your 2/1s into 1/1 Talani Summoners, so you just have waves of them, and they can't kill them all. You got Whirler Rogan here to give us some Thopters over the top strategy. It also gives unblockability to a single creature, which is pretty good in some cases if you need to get like Brudiclad in there, or specific creatures need to get in there. But more importantly, this one makes 2 Thopters, which allows us to give a flying attack. All right. So that covers the meat of the deck, but we can cover like kind of the veggies. So let's go into the ramp. We got Commander Sphere, Theorem Sculptor because we're artifact centric. I got Joy's Familiar, also good for discounting. Kiki Jiki, Feldon, and some of the other artifacts as well as legendaries. Mana Crypt, we're gonna want this because our commander costs 6 mana, so we need some decent ramp in here. Mind Stone, optionally turn that into a draw spell. Saheeli, her +1 is like affinity, give the next spell affinity to artifacts, which is crazy. And she also makes Thopters, which is really good for us. So she can protect herself and start generating a board that we can then convert into something good later on. Soul Ring and Solemn, pretty decent here. You know, it wouldn't win the game to write a replication kick in a solemn, but it'll put us pretty freaking far ahead. Let's go look at the removal real quick. We got Chaos Warp, classic, good card. We got Crush of Tentacles in here. So this is a 6 mana unsummon all non-land permanents, but it also has a 5 mana surge that if we've casted another spell this turn, we can cast it for a surge cost, so we get a discount of 1. Also, if we cast it for a surge cost, it makes an 8/8 octopus, which is a pretty good token, I would think. So you can Crush your Tentacles, bouncing everything in hand, and then on your next turn, you can plop down your Telcore Engineer, make his 2/1 on combat, and then that 2/1, of course, then becomes a copy of the 8/8. So it's like 16 power after you board wipe. So we got Curse of the Swine, exiling a bunch of creatures. Also, we have the option, to target one of our own things and upgrade to a 2/2. But mostly, this is a meta consideration due to the fact that I'm going to be playing Yahenni's and Indestructible and that kind of thing. So we got Cyclonic Rift. That's obviously going to be in here, and Reality Shift. Kind of the same thing. It's good for dealing with the Yahenni Indestructibility because we're a damage-centric deck for most parts. All right, so what else? We got some draw. We'll go Champion of the Wisps. We're going to love this guy. You saw we have some graveyard synergies, so this is totally fine dumping some bodies into the bin. But also it has Eternalize to come back as a 4/4 token. So, and then we clone that token. That token draw 4, discard 2. So we start cloning that token and stuff like that with some of our clone spells. Or we can just, convert our creatures into 4/4s, or mirror into 4/4s. We got Compulsive Research and Thirst for Knowledge in here. Just a little bit of burst draw for 3 mana. We got Consecrated Sphinx. Of course we're going to freaking clone this thing, man. This thing's insane. One of the best Timmy draw spells in Magic the Gathering. We got Loyal Drake in here too, which is a lower end version. We can make a couple clones of these if we need to in a pinch. We got a 2/2 flyer that can pop Planeswalkers and keep everybody in check and deal incidental damage, but also it draws us a lot of cards. We got Ponder and Preordain to fix our starting hands and also, dig a little bit deeper. Rhystic Study, of course, what a great draw engine. We got Skull Clamp, that works pretty well, with Reef Worm, as well as all the 2/1s we're going to be making, and also the Mirror Battlesphere Mirror. And then let's go into the utility. So these are some of our other Silver Bullets and whatnot, weird ass cards. You got Dualcaster Mage. I told you that works well with Twin Flame going infinite, but it also works just as fine with all the other clone effects: Cackling Counterparts, Quasi Duplicate, Supplant Form if you just happen to have 9 mana laying around. So this guy's pretty decent. He's also a 2/2, which is a slight upgrade over our 2/1s. We got Fabricate to go dig for our Mirror Battlesphere or our God of Pharaoh's Gift if we need to. Pact of Negation and Summer Denial, the only 2 counters. You could probably up that count if you want, if you have an interaction-heavy format. My opponent's probably not going to really know what my deck does right off the bat, so I don't feel like a whole lot of interaction is going to be super relevant in our gameplay. But I like Stubborn Denial in a deck where our commander has 4 mana, or 4 power. That way we can just keep 1 mana open, and I know that this thing is a full-on, negate for 1 mana when I cast my commander, and this is on backup. Pact is obviously way better, but I like to have, Stubborn Denial also as a defensive posture, a reactive counterspell, not a proactive counterspell. Pact also really good for preventing somebody from winning the game. And you can run Force in here, but there's a lot of mono brown cards and red cards in here, and you don't generate a whole lot of card draw in this deck, so losing a card to Force of Will is a little tough. We got Trinket Mage in here, which can go fetch our Skull Clamp and our Soul Ring, and it can also fetch a couple of our lands. We got some artifact lands in here, so this can be a Borderland Ranger in a pinch. But this one just kind of smooths out and gets us that ramp that we're going to consistently need. It's effectively our 3rd Soul Ring / Mana Crypt. All right, so that covers basically everything with the lands. So we can go over the lands real quick. We got Ancient Tomb in here. Of course, we went a ramp. Most notable mentions, we got Mirror Pool in here, which is a mythic that everyone thought is complete garbage and is probably in bulk everywhere, in bulk binders everywhere, or bulk boxes. We've got a 5 mana tap activated. 5 mana tap and sack activated ability to put a token on the battlefield as a copy of a creature we control. So this is actually a cloning land, a land that can make a cloning token for us. It definitely flies under people's radar. I've used this in some matchups with this deck. People did not even see that I had an end of turn clone generator sitting on the battlefield the whole game. Of course, I mentioned we had the artifact lands. We've got the Darksteel Citadel and the Seat of the Synod. So those will allow us to be tutored up by Trinket Mage. We also got Inventor's Fair, which can help us tutor for an artifact in a pinch too, and gain us a little bit of incidental life. And then Spire of Industry for a little bit of fixing to make sure that we hit our colors and get to a 6 mana as fast as possible. So overall, that wraps up kind of that deck list. So like I was saying, the strategy is instead of making a bunch of crappy tokens and trying not to get board wiped, we use quality interactive creatures, cloning those creatures, and slowly building up a board of good, solid bodies, and then starting to attack with them consistently. And I think this strategy is much better against more interactive formats than trying to like one-shot kill everyone. So it's kind of a lower risk, lower reward kind of build of Brudiclad, but I would encourage you guys to try it. I've been liking it so far. So, but if you guys got Brudiclad lists, let me see them. Post them down here below this YouTube video. Let me see what you got going. I want to look at those for sure and see if there's any cool text that you guys got going on. And if you want to see my upcoming opponents deck lists, you can check those out. I'll have them linked below, or you can go to our YouTube channel and look for them. They'll be posting their deck text as well. So keep an eye out. Like, subscribe, and click that bell icon so that you get a notification when the gameplay comes out, and we'll see how well Brudiclad Tailcore Engineer does in that matchup. So that's it. That wraps it up, man. So as always, thanks for coming by. Thanks for checking out this deck tech. Be sure to like and subscribe to those videos. You can follow me on Twitter. I talk a bunch of crap. I'm at Nicky Bolas. You can follow our show too at the Trinisphere if you want to get notifications that way when our new episodes come out. We do new gameplay and new podcasts every Tuesday. So as always, guys, it's not about winning. It's about sending a message. Peace out.